So, my name is Mike Haley. However, it didn't start out that way. From birth, my name was Robert Michael Haley. And I know what you're thinking, that's a very Caucasian name. Aesthetically, I don't exactly match up to that. And I want to give you some origin as to why that happened and where I'm from. So I start with a question. How many of you have experienced a very nomadic existence? A very nomadic lifestyle? Packed up and moved several different places? Maybe some of you so many times you can't count on one hand. Well, that's been my existence for 38 years on this planet. In the first 27 years of those 38, I moved on average every 3, 4, 5 years, packed up and moved to a new town, sometimes a new city, a new state or country, several times actually. Well, it all started in a land we call the Philippines. Yeah, I know, Filipino. You thought it was Mexican. Oddly enough, my skill set qualifies me more as a Mexican than a Filipino, but we'll get into that another time. Now, in the Philippines, my father had been stationed there because he was in the United States Air Force. That was his first base from Tennessee. And he grew up in southern United States and moved all the way to the Philippines. So a bit of a culture shock. So he was really out of his element. But he met my mother there. She was the nanny for his boss at the time. And one thing led to another, and here you go, Mike Haley's born. And shortly after I was born, 3 months exactly, we moved to the US, Colorado to be exact. And my father had lived in Colorado for a period of time, so he was kind of familiar with this territory. But my mother, now you take a countryside Filipino gal with no higher than high school education over to Colorado, and you've got some real diverse situations happening, especially with a very southern side of my father. My father's family is from, the southern U.S. From Colorado, we moved to Germany. So again, we're back all the way across the ocean. This is where my sister was born. We lived in Germany for about 5 years. And we stayed there for, through elementary. And I didn't quite pick up German, but I did try. Then we went from Germany over to California. In fact, we went to Sacramento, California. And this is where my parents split up and divorced. From there, they both remarried, but my mother continued her career as a military spouse, as she married other military guys. And so this kind of became a really unorthodox career choice. But hey, she's a small town countryside Filipino girl who's traveling the world on somebody else's dime. So kudos to her. But she decided to remarry into the Air Force, and we moved again from Sacramento over to New Mexico. This is where I graduated high school. Stayed there for a little while. My sister came and went. We kind of split up our time between our mother and our father. And then from New Mexico, they gave me a choice. They said, you can either stay here in New Mexico and live a life of your own and do what you will and try to survive and so on. Or you can come over to England, which was their next base. And I thought about it. I really didn't want to leave. I had a really good group of friends there that finally made me feel comfortable. After all that moving, I finally had a nucleus of people that made me feel like I was a part of something. So, but I talked to those friends, and they adamantly told me, go to England. What are you thinking? This is a free trip to Europe. You can go to England and learn so much more. And so I did. I went to England, suffered depression for about 6 months, and then it finally hit me. I started mingling, getting to know the community, and I made a crazy life for myself between the ages of 18 and 25. So that was a really wild time. That's a whole other speech. But so I stayed in England for that long, and then it was time to make a change. I was getting into some really bad habits, some really bad and dangerous routines. And I talked to my father, who decided that, hey, your great-grandfather needs help in Florida. Why don't we ship you down there and see if we can maybe fix this situation? So I went to Florida, lived with a 90-year-old for about 2 years, and then he passed away. But during those 2 years, there was self-rehabilitation There was some significant change in my life to better myself and to project a better future for myself. So in Florida, I grew to hate Florida, by the way. I did get healthy. I lost about 100 pounds. I left England 300 pounds, left Florida about 200 pounds. So I shed all of that in that hot, humid, disgusting state. And so, but at the end of that, I was in a bad relationship, and I asked my father, can you help me come back to California? I hate it here. I can't stand the weather. I'm really sad and miserable. I wish he wouldn't have helped me. I wish that I could have taken that opportunity to make change for myself without the help of the Air Force, without the help of my father. But this was the first time I recognized that thought pattern in my head. I thought for a second, wait a second, this is not necessary. I can do this. But nonetheless, I did take him up on the offer. I came back to California, and I've been here since. That was since 2007. And I now have a 9-year-old son, and I'm now planted in this community more firmly than I have been in any other. But the big takeaway I want to give to you is, yes, that was a stressful lifestyle. Yes, there was a lot of challenges of change, but that empowered me. That gave me a very intimate relationship with change. That allowed me to think, you know, I can't move every 3 or 4 or 5 years to get that motion, get that motivation. But I can now recognize what is happening in my head and challenge myself and bring myself to things like Toastmasters and force myself to grow and feed that relationship within me. And that's the one thing that I've realized living all over the world that is common between people, and that is we all have the same journey of the heart. The relationship with ourselves is the most important final destination you have in every matter of your life. And that's what I aim to do, is to recognize that thought process and love myself enough to make changes on my own. Thank you.
Your timing constraints for 4 to 6 minutes, and you went a full 7 minutes and 13 seconds.
Okay.
We'll work on that.
Yeah.